January 20th, 1930 was a date to savor. They had created a bank beyond the reach of their national or international law. So there you go, beyond the reach of national and international law. Yeah, it's the new underworld order. No one knows about it. On that date, the governments of the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Japan, and Switzerland signed an extraordinary document. The Hague Convention guaranteed that the BIS would be the world's most privileged and legally protected bank. Its statutes, which remain in force to this day, essentially make the BIS untouchable. Monday, June 2nd, 2025, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Well, today we're going to look at the Bank for International Settlements. We looked into the bank about a month ago on May 1st, and I spoke about this bank being the most notorious cartel on the planet. Today, we're going to look a little deeper into the origins of the BIS and why, in my opinion, the BIS is the new underworld order's bank. Yes, and I'll explain what the new underworld order is when we get to it. And before we do, though, I want to reference something that the philosopher Seneca said. And the reason I'm doing this is because I got a comment the other day saying, if you've got all this information, why are you giving it out? And it's one of the reasons why I started this channel. And one of the ways that I express myself is as if I was talking to a friend. So I consider all of you out there friends. So I just recently bought this book because one of you recommended it to me. One of you who is one of my Patreons on Patreon, and I thank you all of you who support me through Patreon. What do you get on Patreon from me? Well, you get like private access with messages to me. I don't post anything that's exclusive just for Patreon supporters. Everything that I do is here, public. So if you want to find out more how to support me on Patreon, there are links below in the description of all my videos. But anyway, I bought this book recently, and I was reading here on chapter 6 on sharing knowledge. So that was interesting. I thought, wow, maybe he's going to say something about sharing knowledge that could elucidate me on why I do this. And he did. It says here, no good thing is pleasant to possess without friends to share it. So that's why I do it. Am I saying everything I share is a good thing? I hope so. That's what I think it is, because I think I try to get to the bottom, to the truth, to the contrarian view, right? And the alternative economics and all that. So just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, I'm getting really interested in philosophy. Maybe we're going to be talking a lot more about not just Seneca, but also Marcus Aurelius. There's some really great philosophers out there and some really good advice on how to live one's life. So back to the Bank for International Settlements. Yes, about a month ago, I talked about how it's the most notorious cartel on the planet. Of course, it's a very low-key institution, but as a lot of you already know, it's the bank for the central bankers. And it was created through an international conference in The Hague in 1930 through a treaty. So what we're going to do today is go through some passages here that will show you that this bank controls the world. We don't have democracy. And yes, as Lord Rothschild said in the 19th century, give me control of a nation's money or currency, and I care not who writes the laws. And in this case, the BIS gave them control of the world, at least the Western world. And I would venture to say almost the whole world. And I said that this bank is the new underworld orders bank. And this book here is by Christopher Story. He passed away about 14 years ago. He was an advisor, economic advisor to Margaret Thatcher in the 80s, and I think in the 70s as well. And he did a lot of research. He used to post worldreports.org. He forecast just a few months before the great financial crisis started. He forecast that crisis. And I think you can find this book online, but it's quite expensive. It's not being published anymore. I'll give you a very brief summary of what this means. Basically, he said that the world, at least in the West, or even Russia and other countries, is run by the intelligence agencies, by people in the shadows. And he called it synarchy. Synarchy is ruled by several people in secret, I would say. So yeah, we have a new underworld order and synarchy. And he says triumph of criminalism and dark actors playing games. So the other thing that convinces me that that is true is people like Catherine Austin Fitts talking about the missing 21 trillion, which is probably a lot more now. Yeah, the fact that you can't really trust what governments are doing, and they keep lying to us, right? So let's go back to the Tower of Basel by Adam Libor, the shadowy history of the secret bank that runs the world. And it's interesting because there's the old saying about hiding things in plain sight. And the author actually got access to the archives of the BIS. He interviewed former central bankers. So they're not afraid to tell you what they do. I think it's because they rightfully think that the public won't look into it. They've never have. They're more preoccupied with bread and circus, right? So that's the reason. But maybe now with the medium of the internet and YouTube and other social media platforms, this is changing. The other thing I would say, why do we need to know about this? Why are you sharing this knowledge? I think it's because if you don't know who your true enemy is, you can never win in life. You can never really know how you need to act. So that's the way I see it. So let's start. And I marked here a few parts of the book right at the beginning that will tell us quite a bit more about the BIS and why it is a notorious cartel. When you talk about cartel, people think of OPEC, which of course is a cartel, but I would say the BIS is an even worse cartel, and it's been around for almost 100 years. So here on, it's page 13, and it's chapter 1, and the chapter is entitled The Bankers Know Best. And this book, of course, you can still buy it on Amazon. I'm not sure if there's a free PDF online, but it says here, and this was in the run-up to the creation of the bank. And it says, meanwhile, in London, Walter Layton, the editor of The Economist, the Economist magazine, and many people know that The Economist magazine was funded and probably founded by the Rothschilds. But this is quite interesting, though. It says Walter Layton, the editor, was still grappling with the new bank's constitution. The key point, as Layton recalled, was to, and I quote, work out some form of words that would place the bank beyond the reach of governments. And it says Layton struggled hopelessly. Those were his words. He struggled hopelessly. And then told Norman what he had failed, that he had failed. So Montague Norman, he was the governor of the Bank of England, and him and Hjalmar Schacht, who was the head of the Reichsbank, they were, the BIS was their baby, and they were good friends. So interesting, right? So this is what Norman said. Why do you insist it can't be done? Norman demanded, annoyed. And this is what Layton said. Because it's the right of every democratic government to reserve its freedom of action, Layton replied, an argument that would resonate through the decades. Layton admitted defeat. The Constitution was eventually drafted by one of the many committees set up to establish the BIS. But Norman was victorious. The bank's statutes, still extant today, enshrine its absolute independence from interfering politicians and governments. As for Schacht, chastened and unhappy about the reparation demands of the Young Plan, he traveled to the spa of Marienbad in Czechoslovakia to spend time with his wife Louise. Narrow-minded, rigid, and intensely Prussian, as he later described her, Louise met him at the train station. She shouted, "You should never have signed," but Schacht and Montague Norman had their bank. Why was his wife unhappy about him signing it? Well, because she knew that was the end of Germany, and she was right. Yes, she was right. Anyway, so what I'm trying to show you here is to prove what I said earlier, that we don't have representative government or democracy. The bankers are in charge, and they have been since 1930. What's the only way to get rid of the BIS? Well, it would be to abolish this treaty, the Hague Treaty, to liquidate the assets of the BIS. And the major shareholders, of course, are the central banks. I think the Fed only became shareholder in the 90s. Prior to that, it was JP Morgan, First National City Bank of New York, First National City Bank of Chicago. So that's how it would be done. I wouldn't hold my breath, though, and wait for Donald Trump to say he's going to abolish the BIS. I think that's the last thing on his mind, or any politician's mind. And one of the reasons why I think is because the control of this bank and the people who founded this bank are deeply intertwined with the intelligence agencies. They're very powerful. They're kind of above the law. I do have a book here about the church committee that tried to expose the CIA back in the 70s, and it was sent to me by Frank Church's son, who watches the channel. I have to thank him again for that. Yes, Senator Church exposed a lot of the activity, let's say, that the CIA had been doing that was outside the Constitution. But I don't think things have changed. They're still at it, not just the CIA, but all the other intelligence agencies. They all work together. That's why it's called synarchy. And that's why it's the new underworld order. Underworld because no one knows about them. So we're going to chapter 2 now. And it's entitled A Cozy Club in Basel, Basel, Switzerland. And the reason they chose Basel for the headquarters of the BIS was that Basel is like on the border with Germany and France. So it's like at the time they needed to move the gold to pay the reparations for World War I. And it's a neutral place. So that's why they chose Basel. They were thinking of maybe Amsterdam and other places, but they came up with Basel. So it says here, Alan Dulles. Where have we heard that name before, right? He was the guy that JFK sacked at the CIA. And then a few months later, JFK was assassinated. And then Alan Dulles was on the Warren Commission, of course, to tell us who really assassinated JFK. But anyways, it says Alan Dulles had a simple request for Leon Fraser that autumn of 1930. His sister, Eleanor Lansing Dulles, had received a scholarship from Harvard University to write a book about the BIS. Eleanor Dulles was a well-regarded academic and currency expert who had previously written a book about the French franc. Alan Dulles wrote, "Anything you can do for her would be greatly appreciated." And I can assure you, she is a very discreet person. Right. Like her brothers, Eleanor Dulles also had easy access to the world's most powerful bankers and financiers. Alan Dulles' letter was not the first Fraser had received that asked him to assist Eleanor. Owen Young had written in May that year, and Gates Magara, the BIS president, who was also getting letters about Eleanor Dulles. Paul Warburg, the eminent banker, and the author, of course, the guy who wrote the blueprint for the Federal Reserve at Jekyll Island, Warburg, had written to Magara from the headquarters of Warburg at 40 Wall Street in New York. Warburg explained that Eleanor was a sister of my good friend, John Foster Dulles. Well, Alan Dulles' brother, whose name is well known to you as a writer on international questions and whom you undoubtedly know personally. Jackson Reynolds, president of the First National Bank of New York, there you go, a shareholder of the BIS, who had chaired the BIS Organization Committee in Baden-Baden, wrote to Magara from 2 Wall Street. He asked Magara to assist Miss Dulles, especially as she was the sister of Reynolds' friend, John Foster Dulles. There were few, if any, people in the United States then with a more powerful, influential set of friends than John Foster Dulles, who had served as legal counsel to the U.S. delegation at the Paris Peace Conference, Versailles, where he had specialized in German war reparations. His time in Paris gave him a privileged insight into the workings of international finance and diplomacy and a network of coveted contacts. Dulles' clients list during the 1920s read like a who's who of American finance: J.P. Morgan, Kuhn Loeb, Harris, Forbes & Co., Brown Brothers, W.A. Harriman, and Goldman Sachs. Dulles arranged tens of millions of dollars worth of loans to clients, including the cities of Munich, Frankfurt, Nuremberg, Berlin, and Hanover, and the Union of German Mortgage Banks, and the Berlin City Electric Company, and so on. Wall Street in the 1920s was possessed by a near mania to lend to Germany. In 1923, American banks and finance houses sent abroad $458 million in long-term capital. Anyway, it says here, Allen Dulles returned to Bern during the Second World War as a far more experienced, powerful, and influential spy master, harvesting much information through his assets at the BIS. John Foster Dulles went on to become U.S. Secretary of State for Eisenhower administration during the 50s. At the height of the Cold War, the Dulles brothers would help ensure that Nazi bankers, businessmen, and industrialists, many of whom should have been tried for war crimes, were seamlessly integrated back into powerful positions in the new Federal Republic of Germany. The other thing about the two brothers is that they became partners at a law firm called Sullivan and Cromwell, which is still really powerful. So there you go. The reason I spoke about this here, I read this, is to show you how, yeah, it's all like a cozy club. So there's another part here that I want to read to you, and it says, for Hjalmar Schacht, he was the president of the Reichsbank, and Montague Norman, the governor of the Bank of England. Article 10 of the BIS Constituent Charter noted, the bank, its properties and assets, and all deposits and other funds entrusted to it shall be immune in time of peace and in time of war from any measure such as expropriation, requisition, seizure, confiscation, prohibition, or restriction of gold or currency export or import, and any other similar measures. I'm going to stop here because I think I've given you enough here for you to realize that this bank is out of control. And I think a lot of the gold that we've seen flowing, physical gold, from late 2024 till this year, is going through the BIS. And why is that? Well, because it's all secret. They don't have to tell the world or any national government or international agency. Maybe I'll come back in a month's time and cover some more interesting points about this cartel, this notorious banking cartel. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I highly recommend this book if you want to know, where your enemy really is, and what can we do about the BIS. Well, I think the only thing we can do is to try to expose them to the public, and that's why I ask you to share my video, and with friends, family, anyone, social media, people that you interact with. And the more people know this, the more it becomes public knowledge, and maybe one day this bank will be abolished for good. So we've dragged on a little bit here, but we're still going to look at the markets. It's 7:24 a.m. London time. Of course, we've had some significant geopolitical developments over the weekend vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine. I'm not going to cover it, but I think it's adding uncertainty in the markets, so to speak. And gold and silver are actually reacting quite well. Right now, as I speak, spot gold is up $45 at $3,334. And technically, on the weekly chart, it's looking good. We've had like a consolidation since the 21st of April or thereabouts. And we've taken some rest because the markets, they went up very quickly since the beginning of the year, and especially since the Liberation Day announcement in the beginning of April, and it's just taken a rest. I personally think if we break through 3360, we could be on the way back up to test even higher highs than we've seen before at 3,500. So that's where we are in gold. Silver underperforming a little bit here is at 33.15. It's up 18 cents, but it's only up 0.5% while gold is up 1.3%. The Dow futures is down 210. The NASDAQ 100 futures down 150 points, and the S&P is down 32 points. Not huge, but still lower. The dollar is weaker. We have the pound just above 135, or up 0.4%, and the euro up 1/3% versus the dollar. Dollar's down 0.5% versus the yen, and also down 1/4% versus the Swiss franc. So does that mean you jump from the dollar to these strengthening fiat currencies? Of course not. In my opinion, there's only one hard, stable currency out there, and that's gold, and also silver, even though silver is a little more volatile. WTI crude, well, that's up 2.5% at $62. I saw a headline this weekend saying that OPEC was going to increase production, but that doesn't seem to be having much impact. Maybe the geopolitical climate is not helping. High-grade copper, wow, copper is up 4%. That's huge. We're just below 490 high-grade copper. So let's finish off with the US Treasury market. That's fairly quiet overnight. The 10-year yield is unchanged at 4.42%. The 30-year is up 3 basis points, just below 5% at 4.96. And with that, Rudy and I are going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.